Hey juniors! Today we're going to start talking about the geography of the United States during colonial times. Our essential question for the day. This needs to be written at the very top of your notes page. What are the key geography features of the United States? So, let's start off with, why is geography important? Well, it's super important because physical features of the land affect settlement, movement, and the types of trades that people do in specific areas. For example, have you ever heard of anyone growing cotton in Maine? The climate is too cold and the soil isn't fertile enough. So naturally, you need to find a climate that is suitable for this kind of crop. And that's one way that geography affects history. Alright, so what are physical features? So physical features are distinctive aspects of geography that pertain to climate, landforms, or maybe soil. And those are just some examples. So for example, these mountains here, that's a physical feature. The soil where you grow crops, also a physical feature. And this photo here is just basically showing the different types of physical features, like mountains and rivers, lakes, plateaus, etc. This definition definitely needs to be copied down in your notes, so feel free to stop the video and take a second and write this in your notes page. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the 13 original colonies. We know that the colonies were settled by the British, and they included Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, the tiny state of Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. And this was all British territory. But you guys should remember this from last week. Alright, the New England colonies. The New England colonies consisted of Massachusetts, and of course right here is Plymouth, where we know the Pilgrims landed, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire, which at this time was pretty much part of Massachusetts. So this list of the New England colonies does need to be copied down in your notes, so go ahead and take a second and copy it down in your notes page for today. Pause the video if you need to. Alright, the middle colonies. They consisted of Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and the tiny state of Delaware. This also needs to be copied down in your notes page, so go ahead and take a second and make a list of the middle colonies. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, the southern colonies consisted of Maryland, Virginia, and of course we know that Jamestown is right here, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And these states had lots of agriculture and crops that were grown in it because it was such a warm climate that it grew crops like tobacco and indigo and sugarcane and rice really well. Alright, let's continue with the Appalachian Mountains. The Appalachian Mountains are a system of mountains in eastern North America that range from New York, so you can see New York right here, all the way down to northern Alabama. Now, these mountains served as a natural boundary for the settlers in the colonies here. There aren't that many mountains in Louisiana, so it may be hard to understand, but without the proper resources, it's a huge task to climb a mountain. So it just became a natural boundary. The settlers, for the most part, stayed on this side of the mountains just because they were really hard to get over. Now I want us to definitely write the first bullet point down, that the Appalachian Mountains are a system of mountains in eastern North America, and that they served as a natural boundary for the settlers. This is going to be super important as we get closer to the American Revolution. Alright, the Ohio River. It runs from Pennsylvania down to the edge of Missouri, and it filters into the Mississippi River, which is right here at the edge of this photo. So go ahead and take a second, pause the video if you need to, and write down that the Ohio River runs from Pennsylvania to the edge of Missouri. Alright, the Mississippi River. It's the largest and the most famous river in the entire United States. You can see it in blue here. It runs down the middle of the country and most waterways filter into it. So you can see the Ohio River filters right into it, as well as the Missouri River and the Arkansas River and the Tennessee River. So definitely take a second, pause the video if you need to, and write down that the Mississippi River is the largest and most famous river in the United States, and that it runs down the middle of the country. Alright, the Rocky Mountains. They're a mountain range that start in western Canada, up here, and they go all the way down and touch into New Mexico. These are even larger than the Appalachian Mountains, but they're closer to the west coast. You see California, Oregon, and Washington. So these would serve as a boundary for those people that were on the west coast, which during this time was no one. Alright, the Pacific Ocean. It's the largest ocean in the world, and it touches the west coast of North America. Definitely pause the video and write down that the Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean in the world. Alright, the Atlantic Ocean. This is the ocean between the Americas and Africa and England. So, of course, we know that settlers from England started off in England and crossed the Atlantic Ocean to North America. And that is how they discovered the New World. But this would have taken a really long time, probably about 3 or 4 months almost, to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And of course we know that slaves come from Africa on the Middle Passage to North America. Alright, so one thing that I want to make sure that we understand, since we've been talking about Britain so much, is that the English were not the only ones in the New World. The French controlled Canada and the land between the Appalachian Mountains, which is right here, and the Rocky Mountains, which is right here. So think of the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains as two natural borders, and in between is French territory. Definitely take a moment and pause the video and write down in your notes page that France controlled Canada and the land between the Appalachian Mountains and the Rocky Mountains. Okay, there was also one other country in North America, but this one should not surprise us. We know that Christopher Columbus landed in this area around the Bahamas and Cuba. And Spain established their colonies there, and also established colonies in what's now present-day Mexico and present-day Florida. So they were in North America as well. So we can see from this map that the British control the east coast, where the 13 original colonies are. The French control the area between the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains. And the Spanish have Central America, Florida, and parts of South America. But remember, the British at this time just had the 13 original colonies up and down the East Coast. And as we pointed out in class on Friday, Jamestown is located in Virginia near the Chesapeake Bay on the coast of Virginia. So the fact that it was on the coast made it really easy for transportation to come in and out of Jamestown, bringing more people to Jamestown and taking tobacco out. And Plymouth Colony, as we recall, is right on the coast of Massachusetts near present-day Boston, right here. And Boston's going to become very important to us in the next few days as we get closer to the American Revolution. Alright guys, that's it for our intro to new material for the day. It's time to practice.